Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Let's talk One Piece, specifically the first half of the Dressrosa arc. I have read all the way through chapter 752, so please no spoilers beyond that, though I do plan to finish the rest of the Dressrosa arc as soon as possible. Now, One Piece for me has been very much about family, including found family, and intertwined with this theme of family being explored in so many different ways with so much nuance and beauty. You have the idea of will and legacy, and that is very much a product in many ways of family, along with identity, also stemming from one's family and one's allegiances and one's friends. And this is certainly the case for Dressrosa. Now, this particular arc is obviously very much inspired by Spain, and we see the various teams, as usual, breaking up, the Straw Hats break up into their teams, and they have their missions, and there are the goofy disguises, and they meet with unexpected allies and determined foes and all of that. And we get an epic gladiator sequence here with the star being one mysterious character named Lucy. So this gag really got me in this one. I loved Luffy being scolded by Frankie after being told, don't blurt out your name, don't tell you, we're going incognito here. And the first moment someone asks Luffy his name, he starts to say Luffy. He goes, Lou, and then Frankie hits him on the head, and then he's like, and then we see the next page. He has the sign on his back, Lucy, and I got a lot from that. That was a lot of fun. And also, more mileage from this gag when we get Lucy and Moosey. So, just good stuff there. I'm not going to get a lot into the combat here and the gladiator sequences with the various players like Cavendish or Slash Hakuba. That's Cavendish's alter ego, or what is it, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde thing going on there or something. You've got Burgess from the Blackbeard Pirates there doing Emperor Blackbeard's bidding. And you've got Qin Zhao. I mean, he's also, I will mention, though, that Qin Zhao is part of a family there. He's the grandfather. So there's a family dynamic going on there. He has a feud going on with Garp, Luffy's grandfather. So there's a family thing there. And heritage, right? Will, all that, that's inherited. Qin Zhao goes after Luffy because he is Garp's grandson, right? So there is an inheritance of a sort going on there. And Luffy has something to say about that as well. He has a stance when it comes to, the sins of the fathers being extended to the sons and the grandsons and all of that sort of thing. So there's a lot of nuance to these themes as well. It's not just that will and inheritance equals good or family equals good. There actually are examples of bad families in here. Okay, there are some dysfunctional stuff going on in here and some really toxic families as well that we can talk about. There's also just huge battles and stuff. There are big players like Pika, who can turn into the earth itself, and just big epic stuff. I'm not going to get a ton into that. Just to say that that's the usual stuff we get with One Piece, and it's a lot of fun, and that carries, it's a good vehicle for these themes that I'm going to get into now, including family, found family, intertwined with the idea of will and legacy. This is huge in One Piece. And also identity. So yeah, Luffy, we see right from the beginning, is ready to undertake whatever mission as long as it's with his family, with the Straw Hats. And I think he's pretty much adopted Trafalgar Law at this point, much to Trafalgar Law's consternation. But yeah, he's right from the beginning. He's just ready to go anywhere. And Kinemon and Momonosuke, I'm going to say it correctly this time, Momonosuke. Thank you, everybody who corrected my pronunciation of Momonosuke. I've got it now. I hope that's good. But yeah, Luffy's just ready to go. He's like, oh, we're going where? Okay, let's do it. Right from the beginning. I love that about Luffy. As long as he's with his family, he's ready to go. And also, you see this alliance. I mentioned that Luffy sort of adopted Trafalgar Law. It goes both ways. There is a sense in which Trafalgar Law really affirms his alliance and his friendship with Luffy as an equal, not as a subordinate, not as somebody he's deceiving. I mean, he pretends that he's using the Straw Hats, but I feel like there's a big part of him that feels very attached to them and feels affection for them. And rather than in the moment of crisis, rather than lying to save himself and say that Luffy is, yeah, he's just working for me because he's asked by the Navy. If he's just working for you, then we're okay here. But if you're in an alliance with Luffy, this is Fujitora is telling this to Trafalgar Law. If you're in an alliance with him, then we have a problem here, right? And rather than deny that friendship, rather than deny that status of allies, of equals, Trafalgar Law says, yeah, no, we are equals. We're in this together. And Luffy also reciprocates that loyalty at the same time. He is the same with Trafalgar Law. This is Luffy, of course. So, once he's your friend, he will go anywhere for you and do anything. And he vows to defeat Doflamingo because of what Doflamingo is doing to Trafalgar Law. And that's Luffy. We expect that from him. So his dedication, his loyalty, his friendship is just on display here as usual. But we do see Doflamingo manipulating very cleverly Luffy with the flame fruit, knowing Luffy's loyalty to family and his feelings about Ace. And that is a deliberate, clever, evil villain tactic that he wants to trap Luffy using that leverage of the flame fruit. This whole gladiator thing, this whole contest seems to be his machination in order to trap Luffy. But little does he know that Luffy has another brother named Sabo, which I have to say, I'm not gloating or anything here because I get a lot of things wrong, but I got this one right. So when I read in the post-war, I think it was post-war arc, right, where we get the backstory where we meet Sabo and Sabo dies because of the celestial dragon. I called it back then. I'm pretty sure it's in the video. And I said, I don't think Sabo's gone. I think he's going to come back. And I was delighted to see Sabo back. And who better to claim the legacy of the flame fruit? We're talking about Will here again. We're talking about legacy. He is his brother. He's Ace's brother. And I find it very fulfilling and satisfying that it's Sabo who ultimately gets the flame fruit. And we find out that he is the second in command of this revolutionary movement that Luffy's father, Dragon, is in charge of. And he seems to have learned a thing or two from Dragon. He's got the dragon claw. Sabo has the dragon claw thing. That makes me think of Dragon as well. So he obviously has haki like Luffy. So he seems to be quite a formidable character. But yeah, you see a direct nod, a tip of the hat to this idea of will and legacy. When we had that panel with the 3 bowls at Ace's grave, this is the brotherhood that we are remembering here. And Luffy's emotional reaction to seeing Sabo alive after losing his brother Ace. That was powerful. And also Sabo says, I will not lose another brother because he too has lost Ace. I will not lose another brother, and he is determined to defy the Fujitora and the Navy who are after Luffy. Just love it. Absolutely love it. And he is determined to keep his loved one alive through living out their will as well. This is Ace, right? This is a huge theme in here. You keep doing a person's work in the world, their lives reverberate. And as long as they are remembered and as long as they are honored and their mission, their purpose is being pursued in the world, then they are very much alive through their loved ones. And this is what Luffy and Sabo are doing for Ace here in many ways. So I love that. I absolutely love this. Another kind of family thing going on here. You have a lot of parent-child relationships in here. And one of them it hasn't been delved into very much yet. I feel like there's a lot more to come. But the relationship between Momonosuke and Kinemon is something that I'm interested in seeing develop. There's something going on there. I'm not quite sure. Obviously, Momonosuke is an important character. His importance hasn't quite been revealed yet. And I'm interested to see what develops there. They're after the other samurai, Kanjuro, who has been captured here on Dressrosa after sacrificing himself in order to enable Kinemon to pursue Momonosuke. But is this a straightforward father-son relationship between Kinemon and Momonosuke? I think there's just much more to Momonosuke than I have seen so far. And the idea that he can turn into a dragon is cool. The idea that he denies being able to fly, interesting. Okay, so I want to see where Oda goes with this. So I think there's much more to come, especially since Luffy's already determined that once they're done in Dressrosa, they're all going to be buddies and go off to the next place together. So I'll be interested to see how that develops. But the most powerful parent-child relationship that I have seen so far in the first half of Dressrosa is undoubtedly between the tin soldier, the one-legged tin soldier, who is also, of course, the unremembered Kyros, the gladiator, the undefeated gladiator, and his daughter Rebecca, who has inherited so much from her father without even knowing that he is her father. And here we see the sacrifice of a parent, and it is so beautifully realized in this relationship where literally in this case the parent is forgotten and their sacrifices are not completely understood. Rebecca does evolve in her understanding, but there's some very emotional back and forth. This is a young woman who's lost her mother in a tragic way. And of course, Kyros cannot tell her what it's all about because of this erasure of memory that happens when a person is turned into a toy because of sugar and her particular power of turning someone into a toy, but simultaneously taking away everyone else's memories of that person. Which to me, the taking away the memory part is the worst part of it by far. Being turned into a toy, okay, then not really the best. It could be a little fun, I guess, maybe on weekends, maybe, I don't know. but the erasure of memory from all your loved ones, not knowing you even existed ever, that's horrible. But he forms his own relationship with her as a substitute father, ironically, because he's her real father the whole time, of course. But talk about sacrifices. This is a dude who literally cut off his own leg at a certain point out of loyalty to the Riku dynasty, to the king and all that. But also just what a dude. I mean, but you see that a lot of the time as he's raising this child, that without understanding everything, without understanding sacrifice, a lot of it goes unacknowledged and unrewarded. There's uncertainty on his part as well as a parent. Boy, do we parents relate to this. Like, am I screwing this up? Am I doing enough? Am I overdoing it? As a parent, you constantly worry that you're not doing it right. And you see that in the Tin Soldier. And in Rebecca's journey, going from a child, as she grows in understanding of the Tin Soldier and what he's doing for her, and gradually sees those sacrifices and understands, she comes to love the Tin Soldier as a father. And she does not want to see him suffer. And there's something beautiful about each of them trying their best to prevent the other's suffering, right? He's trying to make a future on Dressrosa for her where she can live. And she is trying to spare him more suffering. And I just find that so beautiful. And also, let's not forget the sacrifice of Rebecca's mother, who dies in the process of trying to feed her daughter tragically. I mean, that is just one of the most... Diamante, not a fan, okay? You don't shoot somebody's mother and then rub it in their face later on and expect me to like you. So yeah, not a fan. But I find great beauty in the relationship between the Tin Soldier and Rebecca and their mutual sacrifices as they grow in understanding and affection and love. And then, of course, she's part of the royal family. They're both part of the royal family. He's married into it as he married Scarlet, the older princess. And the King Riku and his relationship with his people is also very much a familial relationship. There is a notion of him being a sacrificial parental figure here, a very responsible king, a very compassionate king. And of course, his ancestors took over after Doflamingo's ancestors became celestial dragons to form the world government. And we know what kind of people they are, okay? So, we get an indication here that, Doflamingo's ancestors are probably not the greatest people. That this world government was set up basically to seize power, consolidate power, grow power, and screw everybody else. And that's these corrupt elites that are running the world, and everything revolves around them and their satisfaction. And another member of this family, the Riku family, Viola. I'm going to use her real name, not her name under Doflamingo's oppression. She's called Violet there, but Viola is the younger daughter of King Riku, and her loyalty, even after being forced by Doflamingo to be part of the gang, to be part of his family. I love how Sanji actually perceives her. I mean, he's got his haki. His perception is really a cool part of his character, but he sees the real her beneath this facade of compliance, of pretending to go along with Doflamingo and his thing. And it's a sick kind of pleasure that Doflamingo gets from taking a member of the former royal family and turning into one of his lackeys, so to speak. I feel like she has her integrity intact, though, and the first chance she gets when she sees allies in the Straw Hat, she takes a chance, and and Sanji perceives all that, so that's, even though he's a dope for constantly bleeding out of his nose, I do appreciate that he has this perceptiveness to him, so I do love that. And also Rebecca, as the granddaughter of the King Riku, bears the brunt of the people's hate, because of course they're deceived to a degree by Doflamingo and his evil scheming and making it seem like the former king was turning on his own people and slaughtering them and being a tyrant, which is ironic because he himself is the tyrant. He's pretending to be a hero to save them, and he is himself what he claims to be saving them from. So, gee, imagine a ruler doing a thing like that, lying to people and proposing as the hero when he's really the tyrant and the oppressor. It's an old story. But you do see that Rebecca also maintains her integrity. And I also love how Luffy's loyalty is born for her when she bought him lunch, The way to a man's heart is through his stomach, and particularly if his name is Luffy. So that was wonderful. Once he's friends with you, that's it. You've won that loyalty. But here you see how legacy is such a big theme. Like Rebecca bears the burden of this legacy, of this misunderstood hatred, this misplaced hatred for the Riku family. And again, legacy can be a boon, it can be a good thing, or it can be a burden, it can be a bad thing. But Luffy, he denies it. And it's interesting because he himself has inherited so much of his dreams, so much of who he is and all that. But he also just, calls it like he sees it. And he says, well, so what if her grandfather did this? She's not her grandfather. And that panel where he's saying that has Garp right next to King Riku. And he is also saying, look, I'm not my grandfather simultaneously. Whatever feud you have with him, whatever things he's done, I deny responsibility for them. So there is an interesting relationship here with inheritance and legacy and inherited will as a thing, in this series. I love the complexity of this. It's never as straightforward, this is a good thing, and that's it. There are many facets to this idea of inherited will that are being explored here in a really cool way. And all of it gets interwoven with identity because in many ways we are, of course, a product of our families, our relationships, and our found families, the people we choose to relate ourselves with. And that in many ways is how we tell ourselves our own narrative, is the people we belong to, the groups we belong to. And the tragic thing here is we see an example in this particular arc of identity being stolen, people turned into toys. And again, the worst part of that is the erasure of any memory of them from their loved ones. This is the destruction of family. This is what Doflamingo and his lackeys are doing. They're destroying family on an individual level and on a national level. They're destroying the family of this kingdom by deposing its rightful benevolent monarch and putting themselves in their place. But also the individual families. You see, a father has been turned into a toy, and his spouse and child have no memory of who he was, and that is horrible. That is a just awful thing to see. And also the segregation. After the destruction of their families, they are also forced to be segregated from everyone else. They are seen as inferior. And we see the sorrow of the house of toys. How about that for a paradox? Toys are supposed to make people happy. And here you have all these toys who are rejects from society. They are people who have had their memories about them erased. Toys are supposed to make people happy, not be sad. And this paradox is also in the idea of a smile factory here, right? So lots of interesting paradoxes here. And you have this observation by Frankie and others that there is a deep darkness beneath this country, right? There's a facade of happy, the smiley toys and all that, but deep beneath that is a real sorrow, a real loss. This is an ongoing motif in this particular arc that I think is really handled well. And speaking of a deep darkness, there are hints of Trafalgar Law's backstory here. I've not yet gotten, so please don't spoil that for me, but I've gotten major hints about Traffy's backstory, and I feel like I'm on the verge of reading it probably very soon after chapter 752. So I'm very, very keen to find out more. But there have been hints, and he has a very personal feud. It is very clear that one of the things he's been doing here is he's trying to get Doflamingo. It is not just about him trying to get to the emperors or getting this one emperor to get mad at Doflamingo and all that. He wants Doflamingo, and it is very personal. And it has something to do. I'll talk about it in a bit, but with Doflamingo's younger brother, who was apparently a very important person for Trafalgar Law, and Doflamingo had his own real brother killed, apparently murdered. So I haven't found out the details about that yet, but backstory is coming. Also, I feel like I'm on the verge of learning much more about Doflamingo himself. His backstory perhaps is going to be coming too, and know that he is was a celestial dragon. He seems to not have that status now, or he seems to have used it, or whatever. I'll find out more, but he is certainly the descendant of celestial dragons. So let's see what's going on there. It's intriguing. It's intriguing. I don't think there's any backstory that's going to make me like Doflamingo at this point because of all the things he's already done. But I'm intrigued to find out more about him for sure. But his whole family, the Don Quixote family, obviously another literary allusion here in One Piece. Don Quixote, fitting since this is Spain and all of that. But this is the family. This is the family that went from royalty to one of the celestial dragons. And I feel like the Don Quixote family, as Doflamingo has now constructed it, is, of course, it's another example of a family. He has his cohorts organizing. They call themselves literally a family. But it's a very mafia-esque family here, isn't it? There's loyalty. There is loyalty in there, and there's rewards for accomplishments and valor and whatnot. But they're also just horrible to other people, aren't they? I don't feel like there's a whole lot to admire here, actually. They even punish their own members who don't live up to expectations. Okay, look at what happens to Bellamy, for example. He's axed by Dellinger, on the orders of Doflamingo, of course. So family can be dysfunctional. It can be toxic to outsiders. And that's not a good thing, in my opinion. When you have an in-group and it's just another slightly extended form of narcissism, right? So a narcissist doesn't care about anybody but themselves. But another kind of narcissism is it's just my family is all that matters and nobody else matters, right? And that's what I see in the Doflamingo's lackeys, in the Don Quixote family, as it's called. It's toxic. They're narcissistic. They're cruel, often needlessly cruel to outsiders. A very good example is Diamante, not just killing Scarlet, but reveling in it. Okay? That's sick. And I don't see myself ever being a fan. But I will say that if I am hating the villains, then Oda is doing his job very well indeed. So very effective villain here. And like all tyrants who thrive on violence and hate and division, Doflamingo separates people into the obedient winners. This is a quote, okay, from one of the maimed gladiators that are imprisoned inside the coliseum. He separates people into the obedient winners. That's the in-group. That's us, right? But you cross that line and you become one of the rebellious losers, right? That's the them. There's us and them. And this is the mindset of tyrannical people. It's only a us-them world. It's a black and white, right? It's just good and evil. And of course, we're the good, right? But really not. And it's very much like the world government. That is also remarked upon, that the world government functions the same way. There's this understanding that if you divide people, you can maintain and even increase your power over them. You keep them divided and weak, and you manipulate them. You appeal to people's tribalism and their hatred and their fear, which is where their hatred stems from, frankly. And rulers, these are rulers who live in luxury while exploiting various groups, minority groups usually. And this is what the Don Quixote family does to groups like the Tontatas. I haven't talked about the fairies yet, the Tontatas. Here you have a very clear example of a group of people that is exploited brutally. It's even described as slavery in the past and even in the present, as they have enslaved some of these Tontatas in this smile factory. So you have a very clear juxtaposition here between the Don Quixote rulers, who are all about fear and hatred, versus the rule based on compassion and understanding and connection of the Riku family. So very deliberate juxtaposition. And not only does it talk about slavery, but it talks about in the past the idea that the Riku family, so compassionate that they even went about establishing reparations for the Tontatas, that they tried to make their lives better, to make up for the terrible things that were done to them in the past. So, yeah, very cool. And speaking of the Tontatas, the fairies, nice little nod there to Gulliver's Travels with Robin being tied down there when she initially encounters them. Very clearly, but in this case, it's not the Tontatas that are the gullible ones. Unlike the Lilliputians that Gulliver meets, when Gulliver meets the Lilliputians, he's the gullible one, really. But it's the poor Tontatas who are so very gullible and therefore vulnerable to manipulation. And of course, you see that it's put him in a bad place. Yeah, and then another player here, of course, is the Navy. I mentioned Fujitora earlier. I find it interesting how at one point early on he even remarks that he's glad to be blind. It's better to be blind so he cannot see the injustice in the world. And I find him a very interesting character because at moments I felt like maybe he himself was not just physically blind but metaphorically blind, because he's dedicated to this role. Okay, he's relatively new to the Navy. He's obviously very powerful, but he has a certain agenda here that he's after, I think, but he does obey the law in situations where, I don't know, like for example, on Greenbit, he sides against Trafalgar law because he refuses to renounce Luffy in that moment, okay? And is he just going to simply protect Doflamingo because Doflamingo is a warlord? Is he's just going to go along with that, knowing that is not the just thing in this moment? What sort of justice is he after? He seems like a decent character. And then he also repeatedly wants to protect innocent lives. You see that. He makes efforts to, unlike almost everybody else there, to make sure the ordinary people are protected. But we also get this revelation that he does have this long-term goal, actually, to get rid of the seven warlord system. So it may be a case here of him going along with the letter of the law for the moment, but his long-term goal is actually to get rid of that whole system. So he could be a bit of a revolutionary as well himself, working within the system, so to speak. So I find him a very interesting character, and I hope we get more of Fujitora for sure. I think he's part of Oda's ongoing and I think very interesting exploration of the nature of justice and how we can go about obtaining it and what it is even. Also, speaking of the world government and all of that, you have the secret police, the CP0 in this case, who are, of course, the world government is supporting the status quo. They essentially are the tool of the celestial dragons, it seems, and they're basically there to keep Doflamingo in place. They help him after Trafalgar Law, convinces seemingly Doflamingo to renounce his kingship and everything. They do the cover-up job, right? They're there to help keep Doflamingo in power, and they are kind of like a secret police. And here, I feel like you get Oda's portrayal of this cynical abuse of power to maintain the status quo and excusing any sort of injustice they commit along the way, with the idea that that whatever they do, justice is on their side, right? They get to define what justice is. So yeah. But then you have another storyteller here in the arc, and that is our good friend Usopp, and his storytelling and his claimed association with Mont Blanc Noland, another hero, of course, accused of storytelling when actually Noland was telling the truth. But you see how governments and people in power spin narratives and fabricate lies that they sell to everyone as truth. I mean, that's a classic thing here. But you still see how Usopp he's afraid. That's his other defining characteristic, is he's kind of a coward. But I love how after pretending to be a hero and courageous and all of that, he actually does find the real courage to not abandon his friends. In the moment, he is running away, but he is called back by their faith in him, by his desire to be the hero that they see, by also just the guilt of course, running away. But that is something you see a lot in One Piece, especially with Luffy. There are all kinds of moments where characters are trying to live up to Luffy's view of them. And here we see Usopp trying to live up to the view of the Tontatas of him, that he has fabricated, but it becomes real in a way, sort of, kind of, when he does come back. That's his moment of courage, is he does come back, and ironically and inadvertently saves the day. He saves the day by knocking out Sugar after being forced to eat the super hot jalapeno grape, whatever it was, their weapon they were trying to get her to eat, that she turns on poor Usopp. And of course, he's the horror of what he's transformed into in that moment is what shocks her and saves the day. So Usopp does kind of sort of save the day. It's also kind of funny how Usopp gets past Treble by getting the crap beaten out of him, so that he seems entirely helpless. But it's really fun how telling a story about ourselves sometimes helps us to live up to that story. Sometimes in order to achieve a goal, you have to make up the story in your head that that's where you're going to be, right? But he certainly does win the loyalty, not only there of the Tontatas, but all of the gladiators who had been turned into toys, not to mention, turning the tide, as all the other toys as well are freed and join this revolution that has been organized by Kiros as the Tin Soldier and the Tontatas. And everybody is ready to fight Doflamingo. Just a few more shout-outs here for me, little things that stuck out to me or things that I'm interested in. Of course, my boy Frankie, got to acknowledge his heroism in providing a distraction. I like Frankie. Also, there's this mystery dude with the force field, or the barrier guy, Bartolomeo, okay? I am not quite sure who this is yet. He seems to worship Luffy and the Straw Hats, and he has proven very helpful indeed so far. After initially appearing like a kind of a monstrous baddie, he's turned out to be actually a pretty helpful guy, although he's pretty shy around Luffy and the others since he hero worships them. But who is he exactly? I'm not sure. All I know is that he saw Luffy declare himself that he is the king of the pirates on that execution stand back in Logtown. So that goes back a ways. And also, I love how he saves Bellamy in that moment. I'd mentioned earlier that Bellamy was targeted, but he saves Bellamy out of a sense of comradeship. They had been fighting together in the ring, and he makes sure that Bellamy isn't just discarded by the Don Quixote family. Also very cool to see the return of Koala, she could have easily been a throwaway character back when Fisher Tiger saved her from slavery and brought her back to her family before he was set upon by the stupid humans. But Oda does something with this character, which I think is really cool. And again, this is legacy at work, right? She was given a chance by Fisher Tiger, and now she's doing something with that chance. He saved her from slavery, and now she is fighting to free others and stop the proliferation of horrible weapons. This is her part in the revolution, right? And I love that Oda does this sort of thing, that he takes a character like this, uses this really important theme of legacy. And here we see it in a positive way because of what was done for her by Fisher Tiger. He lives on in her commitment to her view, her vision of justice for people, her wanting to make the world a better place, a place without oppression. Okay, so I think that is just such a great thing that we have this. I hope we see more of Koala, frankly. I think that's really fantastic. So yeah, so those are some shout outs. I'll throw out some predictions. I'm probably going to be dead wrong. Well, I won't be wrong about this one. I'm pretty sure, like I said before, I don't think I'm ever going to like Doflamingo. I will admire the character work. I think I was very right that Caesar Clown, who's basically reduced to a bargaining chip in this arc, he was the warm-up act, okay? But he does introduce some important themes. This is a thing that Oda does all the time. He has a seemingly kind of minor or clownish or comic arc that is doing a ton of foreshadowing for the big epic arc to come. And I feel like, Caesar was the warm-up act for Doflamingo in many ways, who I don't think I'm ever going to like, okay? I know people are fans. There's probably some Doflamingo fans. It's great. Leave a comment. Tell me how much you love Doflamingo. I don't think I'm going to like him, ever, based on what he's done. I just don't think there's anything that could have been done to this guy that will make me feel bad for him, given the stuff that he's already done here. He's a narcissist. He's a psychopath. He's a psychopath. I don't like psychopaths. I'm sorry. Never gonna like him with his parasite string controlling other people, taking away their will. Okay, that's just sick. That's evil. Okay, this idea of utter domination, which he gets his jollies off of. Okay, let's be honest about this here. He uses his powers for evil and to entertain himself, and then postures as if he's a savior. Ugh, okay, I don't like it. Again, brilliant job, Oda, in the villain department here. Yeah, but a psychopath and a narcissist. The birdcage thing, okay? The birdcage, which, he doesn't care about the slaughter that he is going to sit back and enjoy. That's just sick, okay? That is really gross, all right? And it's just innocent people who are going to die because he wants to be entertained. Okay? No. I do think that I'm going to love the character Trafalgar Law more and more. And I think he knows a lot more even than we've seen so far. He talks about the D will always cause another storm, okay? Which is why he bets on Luffy. So I'm interested. What does he know about the past? He has discovered some very important things. So there's just more to his game than I think we've seen already in this first half of Dressrosa. And of course, there's the personal matter of Doflamingo's younger brother, Corazon, which means heart, right, in Spanish, Corazon. The murdered brother, the one that Trafalgar Law says gave him life. I'm very intrigued. I want to find out more. Big Mom's ship showing up. We got an emperor here, not the one that Trafalgar Law and Luffy are trying to manipulate and use to get Doflamingo, but Big Mom's ship shows up at least. So are we going to go emperor hunting in this one? Let's see, Also, will Kaido, will this emperor, I'm supposed to be terrified of this guy, I think. So is he going to show up in this? I don't know. It could get pretty epic here in this. But you do have Sanji. I haven't said much about them. But you do have Sanji and the others aboard the Sunny right now, who seem to be dealing with that side of thing a little bit. So we may see more of that. You have Nami also mentioning that there are these three cards that are at play here. One being Caesar, who obviously is integral for making this weapon. Okay, that's his importance here, his knowledge. And other than that, he's really just a bargaining chip. There's the Smile Factory itself. That is not in the control of the Straw Hats at the moment, but they seem to be getting there. And then there is Momonosuke, okay? And Nami says, these are the three cards. For whatever reason, Doflamingo's after Momonosuke. There's much more to this kid, I think. As Nami says, Nami's very smart and observant. So let's see what goes on with all of that. I think that, again, I feel like there's going to be more to come there. Big battles, obviously. We've had tons of battles already here, but there's more to come, obviously. And I have a feeling that things are going to get grimmer here. Things are going to get darker in the second half of this one, guys. I think there are going to be some losses again. I don't know. I mean, so soon after Marineford and all of that, are there going to be some big tragic losses here? I don't know. I feel like things are going to take a dark turn here in the second half of this really fantastic arc here. I'm loving this one, guys. This is Dressrosa. Feels like it has potential to be up there with my favorites. So let's see what happens. And these aren't particularly bold predictions, I guess, but I am very keen to find out. But that is it for me for now. Until next time.